Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Wojtek.
Hello,
Thank you.
David.
You all right?
Yeah, good, thanks. How are you?
I'm not bad. Thank you very much. Thank you for agreeing to do this interview tonight. I really appreciate it.
It is a pleasure, and it's very good to be here. Thank you. Where are you? What part of the world are you in?
I'm in Scunthorpe in North Lincolnshire.
Oh, Scunthorpe. Lovely.
So, yeah, quite a bit further away than London, but yeah.
I'm south of London these days. I'm in Hastings.
Ah, right. Nice. Nice. Is
Yeah.
that a wall of
Have you ever
CDs I
been
see
down to
behind you there?
Hastings?
Pardon?
It's a wall of CD, which is the greatest format
It is.
thus far invented.
It is. That's all I get. Unless I get any vinyl or tapes free given to me, I only buy CDs. That's it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so-
Very nostalgic for me because I was a CD. I sort of grew up when CDs. So
yeah. I have to
here's
do the same.
Ross.
Hi, Ross.
Hey Dave, yeah, how you doing, mate? You all right?
I'm all right, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for agreeing to come on tonight.
No, no worries, mate. Hi, Woj.
Hello. We're just talking about CDs and vinyls. Which do you prefer, Ross?
Oh wow, that's a tough choice. It's kind of equaled out. I would sort of say vinyl normally, but CDs are kind of, they're coming back for me, man.
Good. Correct answer. Well done.
Yeah, I've
Gold
got a
star.
secret cupboard in my room where I hide them all.
And the Symposium CD, the new best of CD, is amazing. Like the whole way it's designed is my perfect. I couldn't want it any better. I can show it to you now if you want, Dave, but
Yeah. Did you design it?
No, no, but we worked with a great designer who is from a company called Estuary English in Whitstable, and he I was back and forth with him, and we chose the photographs, which was a photographer called Scarlett Page, who used to be back in the day. She would always be at our gigs and take pictures for Kerrang and stuff for us, and press photos and stuff. So we were good friends. And when this album happened, I rang her up, and she was more than happy to. And so some of those photos I had never seen in my life, and they were just languishing in her archive. But it just was perfect. It almost made itself, and it kind of made the release as well. Like without those photos on the release, it just wouldn't be as good, would it, Ross? Just wouldn't be as good.
No, not at all, man.
I want to get it.
It's yeah, it's been good, man.
Well, I can't wait to get myself a copy. Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah, it's so good. And the booklet's really nice because obviously with CDs, the booklet is a large part of the whole of how enjoyable this CD experience is.
It is. People always say,
And
"Oh,
this
we
one's
love
particularly
vinyl
fine.
because of you get the inner sleeve and that," but in a CD you get a full booklet.
Yeah, and it even tells you who's in the band in case you forget. So it's great. What more can you want?
I think you can never forget who was in the band. Can never forget. Right, so thank you again, gentlemen. I've got a few questions to run through and everything, because I know you've been on a lot of interviews the past couple of weeks on the run up to your show coming in November and that. So I apologize if you have answered any of them already in that, but I do have a lot of American subscribers to my channel who are probably going to see this and not know a few of the answers. So I do apologize if you've already heard a few of the questions already. But
No, it's fine.
so I'm just going to start off with, where are you two from, and how did the band come together? How did it blossom, if you know what I mean?
Well, it's quite a simple answer in some ways because me and Ross were in the same secondary school together, which I think Americans call high school. And that was in Shepherd's Bush, in an area of London called Shepherd's Bush, West London. And the whole band, not just me and Ross, but we were all in the same school together. And we were all of the same sort of inclination and mind to just make loud rock music based on our influences at the time, which was everything from Smashing Pumpkins to No Effects and Offspring and Green Day and Bad Religion and Faith No More. And we just took all of those and more and just wanted to replicate and cover those and just make similar sounding noises in our local youth club. And it was as simple as that, really.
I was going to ask this later on, but as you've already just said, they were your influences. So that was the sort of sound you came out with when you released your music. What didn't sound like any of the Britpop stuff that was around the time, like Oasis or Blur or anything? Was that the sound you was aiming for when you?
It was really wide and broad, and actually the rest were in a band. They were called the Junk Puppets, and they were in a band before I joined as bass. And the only reason I joined as bass was because their bass player, I think they went through a couple of bass players, and then the bass chair was free, and I knew that they were there because I remember watching them play Today by Smashing Pumpkins at school. And they were aware of me because I was always giving out demo tapes of my songs around the school. So it just seemed like a natural thing to get together and join forces. And one of the first songs we played was Eddie Vedder Ate My Walkman. They had this song called Eddie Vedder Ate My Walkman, which was really great and which we should still record one day, actually. And but we were into Britpop. I remember I think one of the first things I heard Ross singing was an REM track maybe. And we also loved stuff like Lemonheads and Juliana Hatfield and Red Cross and the Breeders, and we were just into but all of those are still Americans. I don't actually know if we liked anyone English at that point, but we must have done.
Yeah, I mean, we sort of like broadly, we all kind of liked, different genres of music. And I mean, I was definitely massively into, all of those Britpop bands that came out of the UK, and also like all of the kind of bands pre-Britpop too. So, like bands like, like the Wonder Stuff or some of the kind of shoegazer bands.
Yeah.
Like My Bloody Valentine, Ride, and
Actually, yeah,
who else?
Manic
Loads
Street
of those.
Preachers
Manic,
and
yeah,
Therapy. I think Manic
yeah,
Street Preachers and
Therapy,
Therapy from the English sort of side,
yeah,
even though they were probably influenced by America as well, obviously. But those massively influenced me as a songwriter. I remember at the time of writing for Symposium was definitely Therapy and Manics.
All right.
But the Therapy are not English, but and neither are Manics. So yeah.
yeah. But I
Still
mean,
to
like,
find an English band.
when you sort of mention, Britpop as well, there is that kind of like, I was sort of talking about those kind of like baggy bands as well. Like I quite liked, at sort of really early 90s, like Happy Mondays, and obviously Stone Roses are in there, and Charlatans, and Spiral Carpets, James, Blur, Teenage Fan Club, Stereolab. Oh, I could like Sultans of Ping. I used to really like Sultans of Ping. Did you like
Yeah.
them, Wodge?
I don't like
Like
Happy Mondays at all, but I like all the other bands that you've just rolled off there. I can't stand
yeah,
Happy
well, like
Mondays.
I always liked the singer from Sultans of Ping because their music was quite poppy in a way, wasn't it? And it was but the singer was he was quite punky, wasn't he? I liked his attitude on stage,
And
Um,
definitely,
and
even before we signed to the same record label, we were fans of Ash, just totally
yeah,
independently.
and
We go
massive,
see Ash
yeah,
all the time, so they
yeah,
influenced us.
we were massive fans of Ash, and because we were sort of similar ages as them as well, that kind of gave us hope, that maybe we could get signed, and and indeed we did. Like we sort of ended up on the same label as them, which was like really cool. So, that was good. What other bands? Yeah, like Senseless Things. I used to quite like them. I don't know if Ward, were you into them, Senseless Things,
Yeah, I've
and like Mega City 4 and like
The
oh
Blue
loads of
Aeroplanes.
yeah. Animals
That's
that
a band you don't
swim.
hear very much
Yeah.
about. Blue Aeroplanes. Yeah, you don't hear them anymore. No.
No, but
No.
he was called Wojtek as well, wasn't he? He's the only other Wojtek in British rock
Is he?
at that time. Yeah,
Really
yeah.
amazing. I presume he's Polish then.
Yeah, I think it's similar. I mean, I don't know much about him as well.
Yeah.
The start of
I
Wojtek.
like I like the Levelers as well.
Yeah, the
And I'm
Levelers.
just is this podcast just going to be me just talk, or I was just reeling
Well,
off
it's
names of
fine.
bands? I
It's
could
up
go
to
on.
you.
We
It's
could
up
do
to
that.
you, Ross.
We could do that for an hour. Frank and Waters, I love them.
They seem to have one
Yeah,
hit after all, and then no one seems to know any other songs by them.
Yeah, they had a few, didn't they? They had a few. After all, Fashion Crisis in New York. Do you remember that one? That was a good one.
Yeah, they say. Yeah.
I think I'm gonna just change the track of this train, because
we haven't talked about the American bands.
Well,
yet.
I just wanted to just completely solipsistically talk
No,
about,
yeah.
when I
Shut
started,
it down.
it's just sort of extrapolating
boring.
or whatever you want, but talking about CDs like those behind me, when we started, and I don't know about you, Ross, but even though we're 2 years apart in age, but when I started music, it was about cassettes. So it was actually CDs. And I remember the first CD I ever saw in my life, which was boringly Pulse by Pink Floyd, the one with the red flashing LED on the side. But before that, I just go to Our Price, which was the record shop du jour at that time, and just get cassettes. And probably the first two cassettes I got were on my 10th birthday, and they were True Blue by Madonna and Watermark by Enya. So make of that what you will, if you want to make anything of it at all. But after that, I started getting into Prince fairly rapidly, and I had I still got all the Prince cassettes, Love Sexy and Sign of the Times, and listening to those. And so it was really kind of pop was for me. And then the first avenue into guitar music was Iron Maiden. So that's probably the first real English thing that was Iron Maiden. So it doesn't really get much more English than Iron Maiden. And then that led to Def Leppard, and then Guns N' Roses and Nirvana, and then that was it. And then we were back up to speed.
Yeah, kind of similar for me as well, really. Like some of those bands you named there, Woj. The end of the 80s, it was all like Guns N' Roses and Iron Maiden, and I used to love U2, The Cult, Prince, yeah.
The who
Beastie
was
Boys,
massive for me
Madness.
was EMF.
EMF,
it's not embarrassing
yeah.
for me to admit that. And EMF were at our first signed show, which was Wembley, the legendary Wembley Arena. And they
Did
were
you have a
there
chat
at
to
the
them? Did you
after
speak
show.
to them?
No, I
Did
saw
you talk to them?
Ian Dench walking by in the after show, and I was just too embarrassed to talk to him. I didn't know what I was doing, even though he probably would have been quite happy to talk to me, knowing I just played on the stage that in the venue he was at. But, yeah.
They all seem like nice guys.
Yeah, I think, and they're back together again still. They've just got back together again. And the lead singer seems
somewhere that they are playing a few shows coming up soon. Either this year or
they
next
are,
year.
yeah.
I think they are,
yeah. I think they've already started. I think the lead singer now works in Brighton, which isn't too far away from me. And I think at the same place where Martin Rossiter of Gene, who's another, he works down there. So maybe he can introduce me to EMF Singer. That'd be an amazing turn of events for me, for no one else. Just
dreams come true.
James, that's his name.
Well, I'll tell you something. Well, I don't tell many people is you don't need to be ashamed of buying Madonna. I remember the first CD I bought, and it was from Woolworths, and it was Bros. That was the first one I bought, and but like I said, it was the late 80s. I was early late 80s, early 90s. I wasn't even 10 yet, and that was I thought Bros was the world then, but I soon grew out of it, and it was like,
I remember the real hype around Bros and the logo. They seemed edgier than most sort of boy pop bands, but I suppose they were all going for that. But the actual first single I bought was far cooler than Madonna, and it was a 7-inch from W.H. Smith's when they used to sell records, and it was Toya. And the song was called Snow Covers the Kiss. And I met Toya a few years ago, maybe a couple of years ago, and told her this, and she had absolutely no interest. Yeah, she just wanted me to get out of her area. So that was it. But I told her anyway, never meet your idols.
well,
Came
that's
true.
what they're saying. Did you know that Our Price has actually come back?
No,
About a couple of
where?
weeks ago, I came on Instagram. We used to have one in Scunthorpe, but it shut down years and years ago. But it's only starting up online now, and I don't even know if they're actually selling anything yet. But they keep advertising on Instagram and all sorts at the minute. So
Wow,
That's
that's
no good.
cool.
Trying to
That's
make
no
some
good
back.
to me at all. I want Our Price back. The shop. I want it back so I can go in there. I can just relive that feeling.
And Tower
again.
Records as well. I mean, Tower Records and Our Price need to come back in Britain. It's just
Yeah,
that was,
let's come back.
we haven't even
as a
got HMV
teenager.
in Scunthorpe. We've got nothing. There's not a record shop in
Yes,
Scunthorpe at all. The
really?
nearest
You need
one
to
to me is
open
Hull.
one,
I have to
Dave.
go to Hull.
Hull, terrible, terrible. No one needs to go to Hull.
No, tell me about it.
Terrible. But there should be a room for an independent record shop at Scunthorpe. You'd think there would be.
You'd
There's
think
so
it would.
many down in Hastings now. Yeah,
Mate,
they're sort of
mate,
fighting each other.
Mate, Hull's all right.
No,
Mm.
it used to be called Hell, but they had to differentiate between the two.
It's still got the Adelphi
Remember,
Club.
we played.
I remember like places by the venues that we played, and I remember Hull was I can't even remember what it's called, but the
It
actual
was the
venue was
room.
great.
It was Hull, the room. Yeah, we played
they
it a
had a
couple
big-
of times.
They had a big pole in the middle of the stage, didn't they? Which
Which led to hell directly. It was
climbed.
the mouth, the gateway to hell was in the room.
Maybe so.
Maybe.
Hull's all right, man.
Anyway, gents, can I ask, who actually came up with the name Symposium then? Was there any other names being batted around before you settled on that name? Was there anything?
Well, you were called the Junk Puppets, weren't you? And we sort of maybe we're going to go with that. But
Yeah, we had loads of names.
did you?
Glue Bag
Oh,
Estate
Glue
was
Bag
one of them.
Estate. Yeah,
But
that was a good one.
It didn't really go with the type of music we were playing, I guess. It sounded like a gnarly kind of.
I think we
band,
might
right?
have been more successful than we were had we been called Glue Bag Estate. Enemy and
it's a
Melly
great.
would have
I just think it's a
championed us
great
sooner.
name. It's a great
Yeah, it
name.
is.
And Junk Puppets, Slurp. I think an early
Yeah, I remember Slurp.
incarnation.
That was just a bit too close to Blur, though. But Symposium just came because I was and still am a really pretentious pretentious person who enjoys reading classics and ancient Greek and Roman stuff. And obviously there was Plato's Symposium, which is the sort of originator of all symposiums, I guess. And I liked what his one was about, about love and romantic love and finding your partner, as it were. I like that. I mean, it's so cliched and romantic and sickening and pretentious, but so what?
Yeah, but it's the actual meaning, isn't it, behind the name that is what is suited to our
exactly. That was really what I think tipped you
that
guys
was the
over.
decider. Yeah, because at
meeting
first
together and drinking.
people weren't sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
But I'm glad
signed
we
to
stuck with that.
Infectious Records, the same as Ash and that. When did this happen, and was there any interest from any bigger labels than Infectious Records? Because it wasn't the biggest label around at the time. Did you get more interest, or?
We had basically every single record company in the land wanted to sign Symposium at that point. Like everyone you could mention. We had EMI, the Razgold, what was the Mannix one? We remember we went to see Mannix and they played us a Design for Life because before it had come out, and like Epic, whatever it was, like all these huge record labels. It was ridiculous how you know, and we went and saw them all and wined and dined in just a very cliched rock and roll tale. But we went with Infectious because we liked Corda, and it wasn't the biggest deal, but it did give us the most artistic and creative freedom. Like it had things the others didn't give us, like we could choose what was on the record covers and we could choose the running order of the album and all of those things. And, you know, we just had ultimate creative control, for better or worse, I'll add, because in the end, it would have been nice to have someone come in and sort of stop the chaos and say, look, you're going to record this, that, and the other, and we're going to put this out. Because asking, you know, some 17-year-old kids, what do you want to do? It's like herding cats, isn't it? But what do you think, Ross?
Sorry, I was
You
just
zoned
going
out.
off there, and I completely zoned out. Like, yeah, that's right. We signed to Infectious Records.
Yeah. But to answer your
I
question,
know. Yeah.
everyone wanted to sign us that I can think of. There was no one who didn't. It was like one of the last
Yeah.
sort of classic bidding wars of Britpop, as
Yeah.
in my memory. For better or worse, as I say.
Yeah, and I think Infectious, so it did feel right for us. You know, like we knew Ash, you know, and they were on the label, and you know, a lot of the other bands that were on Infectious Records, you know, we had this sort of kinship with. So yeah, it just felt right at the time, really. Yeah, and it was, you know, fantastic label. You know, they had bands like, well, obviously Ash, the Wild Hearts were on, I think it was Mushroom Infectious, wasn't it? Because they had like an Australian kind of link, right? Like it was like Infectious was the UK, and then there was Mushroom, which I think maybe I'm getting this wrong, which I don't know, but it was
No, it's
Mushroom
right,
the
yeah.
Australian thing?
Yeah.
And they had Garbage, you know, they signed Muse, they had
Pop
Peter
Will Eat
Andre.
Itself. I remember Pop Will
Yeah,
Eat Itself was quite attractive.
yeah, Poppies are on there, and who actually Joe, you know, Joe drummed for them as well on one of their tours like a few years ago.
I do.
And like then they had like lots of weird kind of bands from New Zealand as well that were on the label. Like I can't remember what the offshoot was. Flying Nun. Do you remember Flying Nun Records? They had some cool bands too. So you know, we just felt at home there, and you know, Calder Marshall, who ran the company, you know, he was pretty good to us, really, because he, like Wojtek said, you know, he gave us artistic freedom. He let us do what the hell we wanted to do, which was a good thing, and kind of maybe a bad thing, because we did. I think we probably could have done with some sort of A&R direction or something, because we were sort of making a lot of music. Wojtek was writing loads of songs.
But that was the nice thing about Corda. The nice thing about him was that he was giving us like it was a long term. It was meant to be a long term view. So you know we were going to grow up through our records with all our influences, and we were going to find our voice through our records as well. In the end, it just didn't happen that way. But that was the plan.
Yeah, I think we were just trying to find our kind of sound, weren't we? You know, and that
and he was allowing us to
overnight.
do that, which no one else would have done.
Yeah, 100%, mate.
It's funny that you said that they gave you the freedom to pretty much do what you wanted with them. But now, Farewell to the Twilight is probably your most well-known and remembered song. But it was released as your second single. You had Drink the Sunshine came first. Did they say release Drink? Why was Farewell to the Twilight not released first? Even though it's the most popular song you remembered for.
My memory of that was that Drink the Sunshine was at the time I'd just written it, so I think we got signed, and then I signed it as a result of being signed, and it was really fresh, and we were excited by it, as bands always are, by their latest new song. And we were like, yeah, well, this sounds really like us, and because it's the latest thing, it must be the best thing. And you know, it was driving and rocky, and the lyrics were kind of cool and relevant to a new band that had just come out, just being really excited. And so we stuck that out. And then I think with Farewell to Twilight, that was more of an A&R curated kind of suggestion, like this is more commercial and could get you a hit, but it's still, they weren't expecting it to go to number 25 at all. They just wanted to sort of break the top 40 in some way. And but you know, I wasn't aiming for top 10, which was, there was a lot of that pressure around in the Britpop time, like, you know, you've got to be number one, otherwise you've completely failed, which now isn't the case. But again, we didn't have that pressure with Corda so much, but we did put it on ourselves. But if it had been someone else we'd signed to, like a Sony or whatever, or I remember London Records and Mercury Records were also out there, and they just wanted to have, you know, it was important to have hits back in those. It's like that book, isn't it, Ross? Kill Your Friends. It was very much like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, yeah, it was scary actually. How
Cocaine.
how on the mark that book is. It's yeah.
So
Yeah.
were you involved in the artwork a lot then with the singles and everything? Was you full on
Yeah, we were.
involvement in them?
Yeah,
Very much so. Very much
yeah,
so.
with like on the outside, we you know, we had a friend of ours called Thomas McShane, who was a really good artist and photographer, and he kind of followed us around, you know, most of the time when we were doing gigs and touring and stuff. So, like most of the, if not all, right, Wojtek, the artwork on One Day at a Time was done by Thomas, was it?
Yeah, well, One Day at a Time
Yeah,
was Tom's. I think there was Scarlet Page and
yeah,
Dominic did some there, but I
yeah,
do remember this. The
and
first
Dom, yeah.
singles though was very much. I mean, that was the Thomas McShane photo on Drink the Sunshine. But then after that, Farewell to Twilight, we went to an image bank and chose those images that we just liked, which was a whole day of just ridiculousness. And then the Answer to I Hate You, I sort of sketched out the front of that cover with the broken microphone and gave it to the record company, and they put it together really nicely. And then Fair Weather Friend, I think it was your friend Ross that you put forward who painted that image on the front of Fair Weather Friend. And so it was all kinds of different angles and just whatever was, you know. And it's the same with the logo. We would just swap it up, change it around, you know. We were very much like that. We didn't want to really stick to one thing.
I think the only time when we didn't kind of use like you know, friend was probably for the second album, wasn't it? When we the label sort of, I think it was the label or management, someone suggested we go with
yeah, it was easier. We went
was it?
for a whole campaign. We used a group called Blue Source, and they sort of mapped out the whole campaign. It was nice to hand it over to someone else and say, "You do it," and you know, we trusted them, and it was quite nice in the end. I like that artwork, you know, and all that whole singles thing with the Blue Source and on the outside.
Oh.
And then we were back to Tom McShane for Killing Position with the baboon on the street, which was his own vision, which was great.
I think that's my favorite single cover actually. That and Answer to I Hate You.
Yeah.
Cool. That's really good. I'm glad. I like it when bands get lots of creative freedom to do what they want, and they can put what's on their mind at that time in the work. It's good. I like that. I like that a lot.
That was always Corda's philosophy as well. It was always about a snapshot, a moment in time. Just do what you want. He was like fearless, and he wanted us to be fearless. Like, you know, his lodestones were like the Clash and the Who, and just do whatever you want. And you know, if it's a mistake or a misstep, it's fine. It's history. It's what you did then. Do something new now, and just it was the continual generation and creativity. It's lovely to have that trust in you. Is great.
At the start of 1997, you was labelled as the next big band. You was on all the public press and everything, and you was on the Enemy Brat Bus tour and that. But then by the end of 97, you was on the stage with Echo of the Bunnymen, Foo Fighters, No Doubt. How did that feel from beginning of the year being on that small tour to them being massive stages late 9 months later. How was that?
It was the kind of proverbial roller coaster blur that you'd imagine, which is quite cliched, but I mean, our feet didn't touch the ground until we split up, basically. It was just the whole thing was a massive blur. And all I remember about the Foo Fighters was, you know, Nirvana were my heroes and Dave Grohl was a hero, and we were playing with him, and I just couldn't wrap my head around it. And he was there at side of stage watching, joining in. Taylor Hawkins coming into our dressing room, acting the fool and having fun, listening to Iron Maiden and shit together. And it was just mind blowing. We never took it for granted, and we never felt like it was normal ever. What do you think, Ross?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you know, it was a great experience, and yeah, it was just really good. It was, you know, it was nice for us because we'd spent a long time playing to nobody. Oh, actually, not a long time. Well, maybe a couple of years,
Yeah, a
right?
couple of years,
Yeah,
which
two,
was like forever, but it's no time at all,
so,
really.
yeah, and it's like when you've been used to playing these shows or whatever to nobody, you know, over a few years or whatever, to finally sort of, you know, get to play with other bands, and you know, actual bands that you really respect and admire, was you know, was a real privilege. And you know, we basically just totally